This episode has references to and descriptions of partial nudity, pornography, sexual exploitation, and verbal abuse. Listener discretion is advised. Tanu sings the Pathan chartbuster Besharam Rang. Priya gyrates to the super-hit item song Oo Antava Mawa. Preeti speaks about being nervous about her college exams. Nadira tells people to subscribe to her YouTube channel if they want one-on-one time with her, while Kumkum lets you watch as she does her makeup. All of this being live streamed from the intimacy of their homes to countless nameless, faceless people from across the country and possibly even the globe. Live streaming is live and well in India and is going nowhere. When I thought of live streaming, I always thought of YouTube, until I was introduced to the murky world of live streaming apps in India, where I witnessed people doing everything that I just mentioned and much more, while their viewers gave them virtual gifts through micropayments. The content can be heavily sexualized and promoted as such, with women doing just about everything from singing, dancing, or lounging around, some scantily clad, some stripping on camera, while others make suggestive gestures. Live streaming platforms are extremely successful the world over. Case in point, OnlyFans, which is a British video hosting service that became hugely popular during the pandemic as an online marketplace where sex workers, porn stars, and even some celebrities put up exclusive content behind a paywall. What makes it distinct is that it also allows regular people like you and me to put up content for fans and rake in money. There were young girls who had a countdown to when they turned 18 just so they can start their OnlyFans and become millionaires. Their words, not mine. But at least they were waiting till they turned 18. OnlyFans landed into a controversy a few years ago with the revelation that many creators on their platform were turning out to be minors. India is now staring at its own OnlyFans moment. Live streaming apps that have become a safe harbor for all things adult content. But like in the case of OnlyFans, the concerns with a Chingari or a Tango or a Boloji Pro run deeper than just explicit content. And while we couldn't tell for sure, some of the creators on these platforms definitely looked underage. Why should we care? Because Sleaze sells. To put it in context, OnlyFans' annual revenue surpassed the $1 billion mark in the year ended November 30th, 2022. So it's clear that this model not only helps to grab eyeballs, but also downloads and micropayments for these apps. Several of the top earning apps on the Play Store in India are these live streaming apps, whether it's Chamet or Tango or Boloji Pro to name a few. On the morning brief today, we take you to this dark underbelly of the creator economy. Selling sex is the oldest profession in the world, but in this day and age of cheap data and its rampant misuse, in a world where content is king but consent is ignored, and where law enforcers are way behind lawbreakers, the consequences of these businesses can be massive. The men behind these apps defend them.
For you, what is obscenity? And everyone has a different parameter to judge. Since no one has kept a parameter for us, if something we can't, digest it, we kind of, kill it that time only.
Cyber psychologists warn against them.
I've had clients who have engaged into subscriptions for live streaming, and in turn, they have been sextorted. You are at the verge of being addicted. You are losing out on your control mechanisms and you're acting on impulses.
And lawyers say there's no gray area here and that it's completely illegal.
It's just a matter of time. In fact, it is a very dangerous business to be in right now. And there's a specific law which is standing against them.
So why and how are these apps running at all? What's their business model? And how long till the law enforcers take notice? We try to analyze all this and more in today's episode. It's Friday, the 1st of September. I'm your host, Diya Rekhi, and you are listening to The Business of Sleaze, the Dark Side of Live Streaming, on the morning brief from the Economic Times. Let me just start off by saying that when I got on these apps to write my story, I was first shocked and then mighty upset. There were young girls who looked like they'd just bunked their college lecture or something. I almost had this maternal instinct to tell them to go study, or even this urge to just go on this long tirade about the cybersecurity threats associated with what they were doing. Apart from those who looked like they were in college, there were others who seemed like regular housewives, cutting vegetables, folding clothes, and telling people to hit them up on WhatsApp and just reeling off digits like they were speaking to someone they'd known for years. I mean, you wouldn't dream of giving out your number like that, but here they were doing exactly that. And some of the comments coming their way were so unnerving to read. But this was my experience, and you'll hear more about that later. To start off with, I asked my colleague and TMB producer Vinay to also explore some of these apps. And here he is sharing his experience with us. So, Vinay, I gave you this long list of apps. Which one did you finally choose?
So, Dia, as per your list, I went through like not all of those, but two of them, Chingari and Tango. So, my experience was very shady. It didn't even ask me to sign in. So, I was like above 18 or something. So, it showed me this all females doing their webcams. I saw those girls sitting there doing nothing and people were commenting on them. This was on the Chingari app where it gave me like a few seconds of free video call. And I ended up calling one of these webcammers. And then what I did was I tried to hide my face. And as soon as I did that, the person who was like on the call, like she told me that give me this, give me that. When I saw those gift prices, I was like, I'm not going to pay you 3,000 for this gift. And as soon as I told her like I'm not gifting you anything, she abused me and she cut the call.
And what about the other apps? You mentioned you got on two, right? So Chingari was one. Yes. Which was the other one, Vinay?
The other one was Tango. And I cannot describe that app because as soon as I installed it, I opened it. There were this kind of graphics that I cannot even explain on this podcast. People were showing all kind of stuff for money. And they were literally asking, like, do you want a show? Do you want a show? Do you want a show? People were just commenting what they wanted to comment. I cannot even.
Yeah, there's a lot of abuse also. People say the most vile things to those women.
And some of the comments also were like, I don't know if they were females or males, but they were literally pasting amounts like 100 mein kya, to 200 mein kya hoga.
Yeah, rates for different services.
Yeah,
basically.
Rates for different services, yes.
And what about these girls? Did you at any point feel like any of them were, minors or underage and stuff? Because you were saying, right, like you didn't have to worry about, signing up also to view these, girls and so on.
So I saw 2-3 profiles. I think some of the comments said that, are you from Bangladesh? Are you from Bangladesh? But those girls were looking like minor. I can say that because they were so small and they're doing live shows. How they signed up for this? When I went into their privacy details also, I saw that they collect all your information from your IP addresses to your Gmail information to what location are you in. And I was just thinking that why are these people even buying? Are they not concerned about their privacy? If their IP address is getting leaked, their bank account details are getting leaked. And like if they're using their credit card, all the information is going to the app providers. So there can be a misuse of all those things. It was so disturbing.
Yeah, it's pretty dark out there. Yeah.
Very, very, very dark.
The modus operandi of all of these apps is pretty much the same. There are women who are live streaming or available for video calls, and the viewers can gift them things like virtual kisses, donuts, lollipops, and hearts through micropayments, which range from 100 rupees to about 5,000 rupees. And on some apps, these gifts can go up to about 10,000 rupees as well. Also, estimates show that live streaming generates 10 times more engagement in the form of live chat and comments for creators. So, this means that the likelihood of virtual gifts and monetization increases. But the platform takes about 50% of the earnings and the rest goes to the creator. Now, interestingly, a Red Seer report stated that virtual gifting on Indian short form video platforms is expected to reach $1.7 billion by 2030, from just $0.1 billion in 2022. The higher downloads and engagement that this model, so to speak, is enabling is what is making apps like Chingari to begin relying heavily on live streaming. Chingari, in fact, was brazenly advertising and promising, and I quote, thrill-filled nights. The company has also gone full throttle with promotions talking about how it's among the top 10 grossing apps on the App Store and among the top 30 on the Play Store. But several insiders told me that it was this shift in focus towards this new format that has driven traction to the app. Now, just so you know, top grossing would mean the highest number of in-app payments that have been made through the Play Store. So, yeah, clearly lots of kisses, donuts, lollipops flying around. If you've never used the Chingari app and heard its co-founder Deepak Salvi describing it, you would have no idea what it's really about. I spoke to Deepak on June 27th when the app had become among the top grossing apps on the Apple App Store. Here are excerpts from that interview where he talks about why Chingari introduced the live room feature.
So if you see the journey, we have made products for creators to kind of monetize their content. So our thought was initially a creator comes on Chingari as a short video creator. Then he creates an NFT marketplace. He builds his fan base, community. Then he goes on Chingari audio room. He talks with his fan base and kind of, there is an audio chat going on between. And people are tipping, giving gifts to the creator in the audio room. If you see, there are multiple audio rooms. They're gifting, a lot of gifts. So there's another use case. So this was audio room. So we said, why don't we create a live room also where, this creator can interact with his fan base and he can also give time to the fan and can earn through it, basically. So we gave him one more option of monetizing things.
Right. But like OnlyFans, your app is primarily selling adult content now. So was that a conscious pivot?
No. So the thought process was very clear. We wanted one more product for our, fan creator to kind of monetize. And on the live, normally whenever someone asks me this question, I ask them to go on the app and check, because this live video is kind of constantly moderated. There are two ways of moderating. The AI moderation is happening and the human moderation is also happening. If a creator is there and something happens, he can block the user, basically, the fan, or similar vice versa, So people can report this and we ban the profile or we take down the profile, basically.
Because the reason I asked this is because I was on the app and post a certain hour. For instance, I had checked it at around 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock at night, right? Midnight. Right. And the kind of content that was there was not, for lack of a better term, not safe for work, right? Now, all of it was like that, where you had women who were making very suggestive sort of gestures, maybe, or it could have been someone dancing to a song provocatively. It could have been any of those things. And it didn't seem like it was being moderated. So how does that work? And people were saying some really nasty things to these creators. Some, yes, were getting knocked off by the creator, like you said. But, where exactly do you draw the line? And what is the kind of content moderation that you would be doing?
So there are, as I told you, there are two ways of moderation. One is AI and one is human moderation. The AI will check whether there's kind of any skin show or anything, and it will immediately ban the profile or the room. It will close down the room. It won't wait on it. It will close down the room of the user if he or she is doing it. And for the audio purpose, even comments we are more filtering. So there is constant moderation happening. And see, again, it's up to everyone what kind of level they want to know. If you say there's no kind of nudity or anything happening, if something happens like that, we straight away close the room. And nothing happens like this. Till now, we didn't get any instances where that kind of things happen. The people kind of dance, sing, talk. That's kind of, normal. But there's nothing as in then kind of very anything provocative and everything. We definitely this app is not for this kind of purpose, This is app for the creators. That's why otherwise we would have removed all the other products and only kept this app product. Now we would have run the other products.
But what you mentioned, right, about how when you have a creator and they use the platform in a certain way that isn't technically in your hands. I understand that. But when Chingari goes out and, really sort of advertises that, we will provide you with one-on-one calls with, women or, this sort of thing, have a thrill-filled night with someone and so on. Isn't that
I don't think so. We have done that kind of ads. They must be creators who must be doing this. But as Chingari, if you see Chingari handles, like social handles, but I don't think so there's kind of ads which have come through.
Because I came across a lot of those ads. So, maybe are you saying that
creator must be agency or someone? We can't kind of monitor everyone from other platforms. On Chingari, definitely we will monitor.
What is Chingari stand on objectionable or maybe obscene content? What would you define as being obscene content from a platform perspective?
See, everyone is kind of responsible right now. They know what they're watching. But for us, anything abusive words, anything which is skin show, kind of thing, we won't allow. 100% we are against it. So we ban it, we block it. It takes some time to kind of block it. There's no nudity.
But I did see, there was no nudity, but I did see a lot of skin show. So that was that's why I was asking. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. A lot of skin show and possibly, language wise also it was what many would probably term obscene because it was sort of like dirty.
I want to understand what will be for you, what is obscenity and kind of thing. That should be, everyone has a different parameter to judge because since no one has kept a parameter for us, we keep and watch. If something we can't digest it, we kind of kill it that time only. We kind of just kill the room basically.
To me, this interview was frankly quite unbelievable. And I find it easier to digest Chingari's claims of its financial performance. This week, in an Inc. 42 report, CEO Sumit Ghosh said that the company had turned operationally profitable. Now, this announcement comes at a time when Chingari has laid off more than 50% of its workforce in the second round of layoffs within 2 months. But I just want to clarify that this is not a Chingari phenomenon alone. Like I said, this model itself is not new. Chinese apps earlier, like Bigo Live, had a similar model and were banned a while ago. By virtue of being Chinese, that is, not because they were live streaming apps. With other apps too, this has been a very popular format for a few years, even in India. There are some serious questions that we as a society have to answer. There's a reason why these apps thrive. Who are the people who get on these apps? What drives them? Is it a means to financial freedom or expressing their sexuality, or is it something else? Who are those that pay these virtual gifts to strangers on the internet? Cyber psychologist Nirali Bhatia has some interesting answers to share when it comes to these aspects. As someone who's been dealing with cases concerning users of these apps, she finds herself at the heart of it all.
What I have noticed is like the cases that come to us are morely driven by guilt. Now, these are the viewers who have engaged into subscribing or paying for these live streaming activities. Most of them have expressed that, why did they engage into this was because the regular porn was too boring. They wanted something new. Live also has a provision where they can guide the person who is demonstrating what they want to see. So that was more exciting for them, and it was very easily accessible. It's something new and different. It can be tailored to your requirements. Like if you have certain fetishes that you want to fulfill, you can ask the person to do that for you. So it was very tailor-made and a very personalized experience which they enjoyed.
Right. But what do you see as the dangers that come with this sort of activity on the internet, Nirali? Because it's almost like you're living a double life, right?
Absolutely. I've had clients who have engaged into, paid subscriptions for live streaming, and in turn, they have been sextorted and they've been forced into creating content or paying a huge amount. So that is one big thing. Secondly, it has started impacting your own sexual needs, your own sexual desires, and your sexual relationships. So these are two very, very prevalent. And the third one is where you are at the verge of being addicted, because let's understand what it does. It gives you an instant dopamine rush. It being so easily accessible, that instant gratification, that you are losing out on your control mechanisms and you're acting on impulses. So being prone to addiction is also increasing.
And you see this only getting worse with time because live streaming is not going anywhere.
Even it's not just that the addiction and the consumption is going to increase, but these consumers themselves are also becoming creators. I'll share one case with you. I did have a young teen come to me. So this young girl who's come to Mumbai to study, she used to be very anxious about making her needs fulfilled in the city, which is the most expensive in this country to live in. And that's where she had a lot of sugar daddies. And she told me that I'm finding a place where I can honestly not want to, be physically with someone and yet make money in the easiest way. And today, live streaming is offering that to a lot more teens.
From psychology and sociology, we shift our lens towards the law. And for that, I put Ashish Singh of Capstone Legal on the hot seat and asked him how these apps are operating so brazenly.
I think it's more of an enforcement issue. There are laws which exist. For example, the IT law, which prescribes that anyone who publishes or transmits or cause to be published or transmits any obscene material, there are stringent laws against it. But the problem lies in the enforcement. So what I see is that because there are so many apps which are developing and there are no regulators, there is no one body or one watchdog to take care of the situation. Given that these apps come and go very quickly, I think that's where the problem lies. So on one hand, the government has banned pornographic content, but those are just limited in number. Those websites are mostly international websites or known websites. But apps is a completely different ballgame. So I think the need arises for a regulator. I think the laws exist. The only thing is that they are not being enforced.
So, what exactly are these apps violating? And what law can they be booked under?
So, morality be set aside, the lowest hanging fruit which is being breached by all these apps is the Information Technology Act of 2000. So, there are specific provisions which deal with the electronic transmission of material which contains sexually explicit acts. So, Section 65B of the IT Act is the specific law which is applicable because it provides punishment for person who is not only doing such acts but also people who are permitting these acts to be done, and it draws a jail term of 5 years and a fine of 10 lakh rupees, and subsequently if a person does it for the second time there's an increased jail term and increased fine. So for example, if a person is showing an obscene act or doing a sexually provocative act in public, it can draw section 292. If it is being done on an app, it draws section 67A. So it deals specifically with electronic media. The second provision is section 67B, which deals with child pornography, which is obviously banned. We also have the POCSO Act of 2012, which prohibits section 14, criminalizes the same. And there's a very strict punishment under that particular law. So the legal regime is quite strict. It exists. And as I said before, it's an enforcement problem.
So, Ashish, if there is consent, does that change the scope of regulation?
So I think because there is no per se universal or Indian regulator to govern the same, what remains to be seen is these apps are often downloaded by people who are less than 18 years of age. So although it is consent, but any consent given by a minor is no consent at all. And that is something which has to be seen. I mean, personally, I'm of the view that if any person is over 18 years of age and not forced, they can engage in and on a one-on-one conversation with any person who's consenting to do it. But at the same time, how do we ensure that that person is of the consenting age? And therefore, there's a need for greater regulation. So what DOT does, that is Department of Telecommunications, they issue a list of websites. But these websites, these ISPs keep on changing every single day. And through VPN, which is a virtual private network, anyone can access websites overseas and there's no stopping on that. So there's no law which governs VPN and stopping and banning of VPN websites or websites which are accessed through VPN. But coming back to your question, I think there is a scope for more enforcement given the fact who is accessing these websites is completely, I think majority of their viewers are people who are almost 18 years of age or under 18, because that's something which we don't know at all. And simply by getting a consent which says that are you over 18 or are you over 21 doesn't mean an informed consent. So there is some way required to regulate this. There is requirement to have a set of laws which govern the same. Banning is not the solution. It has to be more regulated.
What if it's a consensual transaction of paid sexual content between, say, two 30-year-old people? Then would that be legal?
Sadly, no, because Section 67A and 67B, the purport is very vast. It says that transmitting this material through any electronic means is illegal. But what is to be seen is how the courts would interpret it. That is yet to happen because in such cases, the reporting is so low because both the parties are at almost all times consenting. So the reporting is very low. Maybe the law needs a change. But as of today, between two consenting adults in an environment which is where a platform is provided to do such activities would still be considered illegal.
How are other countries dealing with this?
I mean, globally, the regulation is very strict on these issues because there are strict fines, strict punishments that have gone about. In fact, there is self-regulation as well because the consumer rights groups in these countries and the child rights groups are very, very strong. Globally, the things have moved very fast. People are more aware about their rights. The parents are also more aware about what steps they can take, and the companies are also more receptive. In India, it's very difficult even for us to find out who owns these companies. I mean, there's no regulation on that. If you go on these websites, there would be an address which will be shared by 15 different companies. So there's no accountability which has been put. And at the end of the day, it is a commercial enterprise. They're doing it for money. So if they're gaining money out of it, they have to be regulated in a manner that it doesn't harm a child. And by the way, it's not just accessing that information, it has implications on that person. So a young person who's exposed to such content, it will have implications maybe for life. So we have to regulate it somehow. But what needs to be done is more proactiveness by child right groups, more proactiveness by the NCPCR, which is a statutory body for protection of child rights in India, and also more proactiveness by parents. So it will be a exercise which will be done by all these stakeholders so that we achieve a situation where only consenting adults are able to access the same.
So basically, it's just a matter of time before these apps too are booked by law enforcers. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's just a matter of time. In fact, it is a very dangerous business to be in right now. And there's a specific law which is standing against them. But the question is that who will enforce it? Whether it will be parents, whether it will be consenting adults, whether it will be child right groups. That is the big question. Who will enforce this? Because enforcing criminal offense against a person takes time, money, and also motive. Why do you want to do it? So all these things combined, as of today, obviously it's thriving. These apps are coming up every single day, but it's just a matter of time.
You might be wondering why this is such a big deal when pornography itself is a thriving industry. But here's the thing, pornography is different. Those are actors who are in a controlled environment, who know what they've signed up for in a sense. Here, sure, one can argue that it's between consenting adults, but what we tend to forget is that you don't know who is on the other end of the call and how they will use that information. Oh, and it is live. That's another big difference because it's all happening in real time. There's no script. You don't know if they will screen record you, whether they've taken screenshots of you. Can these pictures surface elsewhere and disrupt your life? Can you be blackmailed? None of this is stuff you know. I'll give you a small example. One woman that I watched on one of these apps was coaxing people to subscribe to her YouTube channel. She had set a target that unless she touched a certain amount of subscribers that day, she would not do anything sexy for her viewers. I went to her YouTube channel and she had videos of her workplace, videos with her young daughter, videos exploring London, and even educational ones about how people could work towards getting a UK visa. It was in stark contrast to what I had seen minutes ago. It was almost like she was leading a double life. And that's okay, as long as those lives don't collide. And what happens when they do? Are the people who sign up for this ready for the consequences? I'm not so sure. I'm not encouraged to, but I should spare a thought for the consumers too, who maybe go on these apps out of curiosity, loneliness, frustration, maybe even perversion. But unlike in the case of porn, where they are watchers, in this case, they are being watched too. Perhaps by thousands. And as Vinay said, they are not just exposing themselves, but their personal and financial details. Many of them could be below 18 and probably don't even realize either the implications or the consequences of what they're doing. I know it's a choice to put up explicit content, provided they aren't being forced, of course, which is a crime in itself. And while everyone has the right to express their sexuality as they please, I can't help but be concerned for them. Maybe I've been writing too many cybersecurity pieces off late. But for me, the image of this one particular girl really haunts me. She was sitting with her textbooks talking about how she had an exam coming up while she was removing her clothes on camera. And people in the live chat were wishing her good luck for her exam as they demanded that she take off more articles of clothing. This was one image. And then there's the other image of the women who helped put India on the moon. If given a choice, I hope women dare to dream because their worth is a lot more than a few virtual kisses. Fast money comes with slow problems, and I wouldn't want for them to deal with those. Banning, of course, will not solve the problem, as Ashish said, but regulation is key. It will not only ensure that at least minors aren't on these apps and sites, and that those who willfully put up this sort of content are held to some standard. Most importantly, it will keep the platforms in check and hold them accountable rather than let them just run amok. Thank you, Vinay, Deepak, Nirali, and Ashish. It's Friday, September 1st. I'm your host, Diya Rekhi, and you were listening to The Business of Sleaze, the dark side of live streaming, only on The Morning Brief from The Economic Times. This episode was produced by Vinay Joshi, sound design by Rajas Nayak. Executive producers Anupriya Nair, Anirban Chaudhary, and Arijit Barman. We hope you liked this episode. Do share and subscribe to the podcast. A new episode of The Morning Brief drops every Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday on whichever listening platform you prefer. Thank you and have a great weekend ahead.